You're listening to an IOE podcast.
Powered by UCL Minds.
Welcome to the ECS staff room. I'm Elaine Long.
And I'm Mark Quinn. We are programme leaders for the UCL Early Career Teacher programme.
So why are we in the staff room? We're here because this is where the best professional learning conversations always take place. This is where problems can be aired bluntly and where solutions can be explored.
Over the course of this series, we'll hear the voices of different colleagues as they come into the ECF staff room. We'll hear from early career teachers themselves and from the mentors and induction tutors who support them. We'll talk about all things ECF, the challenges and the joys. So why don't you enjoy a coffee with us, perhaps even grab a biscuit and sit down to half an hour of ECF staff room chat. Welcome to the ECF staff room, Simon, and to your British Sign Language interpreter, Emma. I'm glad to see you've already put your feet up. You've had a busy day at school, I am sure. Maybe you can tell us, Simon, a little bit about what you do and about your day so far.
Great. Thank you for having me here today, everyone. I really appreciate you inviting me into the ECF staff room for a chat. So my day has been quite chilled. I've had my feet on the desk. No, not really. It's been very busy. I've had a very busy morning. The kids came. I've always enjoyed seeing the kids telling me about their weekend, what they've done. They always have so much to say. And they have what they've accessed over communication over the weekend. We're currently learning about ancient Greece. So we're focusing on a myth called what's his name? Sorry, Theseus and the Minotaur. So we're learning about that at the moment. So we did some maths work, we did some science, and then PE, and then they went home very happy. So it's been a lovely day, but now I'm ready to start.
As you've been making labyrinths, I guess.
Yes. With string, so yeah.
With labyrinths with string. That sounds like fun. Simon, you might not know that we always invite somebody in for a coffee when they come into the ECF staff room. And I know you're in training for the London Marathon, so perhaps you're not allowed to drink coffee. But what would be your normal coffee routine? What would you?
Yeah, unfortunately, no at the moment. But so quite luckily, I live really close to a Gales bakery. So every morning I can go and get coffee for my team. So you can always see me juggling my tray of coffees and all my belongings to get into school and all my paperwork and everything. So it's a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, I haven't perfected the juggling yet. But that's definitely something to improve on for me.
Well, maybe I should.
If anyone's offering me a coffee, I have a flat white with oat milk, please.
Well, okay, I'll get on to Gales right away, and they'll deliver something around the corner to you.
Simon, I can already see you've got a great sense of humour. And I'd like to give our audience an opportunity to get to know you even more. And we think that one of the best ways of getting to know you is to ask you, why did you become a teacher and what route took you to this point?
Okay, so why did I join teaching? So I have many reasons, but I'll try and keep it, I'll try and keep it short because I think that covers some of the points later on. So I've read lots of statistics from the National Deaf Children Society. They have a consortium for research with deaf education, which is shortened to CRIDE. So back in 2011, so all over England, the teachers of the deaf reduced by 2%. But since the CRIDE report was released in 2011, it's declined by 15%. So that was really shocking to me, and that's going to have such a negative impact on deaf children. So really, that's what made me want to become a teacher. And being deaf myself, I had to do a lot of research just to make sure my application form was really strong. Luckily, I have a really good network with deaf professionals all over England, and with the British Association of the Deaf and the president, Martine Monksfield, and other teachers, other deaf teachers of the deaf I know all over England. They have supported me within my decision to become a teacher, really. And there's so much evidence out there to support my decision. So, yeah.
Thank you, Simon. We talked to a lot of ECTs, and every one of them talks about the moral purpose behind what they do. But I think for you particularly, there's an increased sense of moral purpose for you there, and that's really admirable. And it was quite shocking to hear about those statistics as well, and maybe we can get more into that later on in our conversation. But before we get to that, you mentioned that you need lots of hands to juggle all the coffee and to juggle all the things that you've got to do in teaching, and being an ECT is a really difficult task. So the next question for you, what have been the highs and lows of your ECT year so far?
Well, so I'd like to talk about one really amazing high. So I finally finished my first year of teaching. I couldn't believe it. I actually finished it. So it's been such a kind of pulsating journey for me. And of course, I've had plenty of ups and downs, but I have loved every nanosecond of what I've been doing. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fabulous. And I think I found a career that I am really going to love and enjoy and pursue for quite a long time. So I'm very lucky to have found a really great school to start my early career teaching. So I'm at Blanche Neville School for Deaf Children. The school is amazing. They recognise my needs as a deaf teacher. We work with I work with a deaf mentor as well. I've learned so much from my mentor. They have been amazing. So I want to thank Emily. She's been fantastic. So I've talked about a lot of highs, but I will be honest and talk about my lows as well. So some days are very tough. I do struggle with managing paperwork, especially when they pile up and it feels like I've got mountains of paperwork. I did actually break down in tears one day, but I am really grateful for Blanche Neville School and the team. They've supported me through this, and I'm really grateful for the ECT, the programme where I have half a day off to be able to focus on, have time to get into my teaching research and really work out what I need to do and prepare for what's coming next and what's coming for the oncoming year.
That's a lot of information. I'm just trying to absorb some of it, Simon. I was trying to get a picture in my head of what it's like to work in deaf education, and I remember that you reached out to us. You wanted to come into the ECF staff room because you wanted to shine some light on that for us all. So I wonder if you can do a little bit of that for us, and in particular, it might be helpful if you could try to kind of paint a picture of what it's like at Blanche Neville School, maybe a kind of day in the life of a pupil, one of your pupils in your class. What's it like for them?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. So we have Blanche Neville School. I'll go back. Sorry, Blanche Neville School has very small classrooms. So we only have about 5 to 7 or 8 children per class, which means we can really maximise their education and really get to their level and really provide what they need and give them those high expectations of what we want them to achieve. So a day in the life of a child, they chat with their friends in sign language, and it's lovely to see. When they come into the school, they start by reading. before they open their book to read, we make sure they have learnt the vocabulary first, so they can really understand that vocabulary. So, for example, morning. If there's some new vocabulary words. So if somebody says, for example, the word nips, maybe they nip into the shop. The dad nips into the shop. We will explain what nip means so they understand. So we'll do the action as well to show them what it means so they get it, so they understand it straight away. And then they really understand that. So we deliver that. So it's a very child-centred, bilingual school. So it's delivered in both languages, both spoken English and British Sign Language. So the child can choose which communication they would like, which they prefer within the class when they're learning. So maths as well, we try and make it really visual. And English, we have more visual aids like pictures, videos. We do lots of acting, role play. We're very active. We stand up and do things. So a lot of our children suffer from language deprivation as well. So it's a lot of repetition and a lot of teaching them again and reinforcing things and going over what they've learned in the previous lesson just to make sure they've really understood the crux of what we're learning. But I've really enjoyed my time here at Blanche Neville so far. It's been incredibly beneficial to work here.
How old are the children you're teaching, Simon? And do you to what extent are you following a national curriculum, or are you just being informed by a national curriculum?
So for all topics, they vary. We do match the child's ability level. So for maths, we have 3 children that are. So I'm teaching year 4 class at the moment. Sorry. So some of the topics we can use the national curriculum, and some of the topics we have to maybe differentiate those. Maybe use like a year 2 level, but depending on the child's abilities. So we actually have a partnership with a mainstream school called Highgate. So we share a building with them. So if some of the children are doing very well, they can then join the mainstream classes and be involved in their teaching and their topic work with support. So we have somebody to go and support them, so they have communication access. But that works really nicely as well.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so I think Blanche Neville School is just a fabulous school, to be honest.
It sounds great, and I really enjoyed that description of the classroom being so animated. And what I also took from that is there are many complex layers to what you do in the classroom, and I imagine you have to draw on quite a nuanced range of pedagogy to meet the needs of the students that you teach.
Yes.
And I'm sure in what you said also, you're also drawing on a lot of principles from cognitive science to help students remember what they're learning, particularly with the vocabulary recap, which must be so important to their development. And what I'm thinking is that must mean you have to work really hard, Simon, and you must have to be, more than any teacher, a real expert in what you do to be able to do that. So I'm sure a day in your life involves many, many things. So would you be able to now expand on what a day in your life is like teaching the students?
Oh, okay. So in a nutshell, really, so I've kind of explained my job role, I think, and like you said, it is so working in different education. Yeah, there's a lot of preparation, a lot of planning in advance. I know other teachers do that as well, but my usual day, I do struggle with sleep because I'm just, awake half the night thinking, oh, what am I going to teach them? How can I teach them? What will work for them? So I do keep, stay awake at night. But I am improving from my university days, so no worries there. Oh, so I go to Gales, like I mentioned before, and get my coffee. I'm still waiting for that coffee, by the way, but I'm sure it will turn up soon. I get to school, I set up my classroom, I print any resources that I need to print for the day. I have a quick meeting with my team, my CSWs, so she will voice over for me. So we work really well as a team, which is really good. I also have a learning support assistant. So we decide who will be working with who during the day. And when school starts, the children arrive, we sit them down, we make sure they've settled okay, we make sure they're all right, make sure they slept well and they're ready to learn. We read, we always start with English in the morning when they're alert and fresh, ready to learn. Most of the time I try and plan an exciting lesson to be engaging, make sure it's kinesthetic, and make sure it's stimulating, so they just remember that lesson and it really goes in. So, and just, yeah, like I said, just to make sure they remember what's happened in that lesson the following day. Yeah, and the whole day goes like that. We have maths next, and sometimes, I know it's really beneficial to have paperwork and things for them to write on, but sometimes we do activities and tasks. So for today, we were on the floor. I don't know if you can see, I've got some masking tape on the floor. And we're trying to do number lines. So I've been giving the children some cards with numbers written on them, and they're putting those numbers on the number lines. So it's really active and getting them engaged in it. And then they measure it out with a ruler as well, so they can see if it's accurate or not. So yeah, they are quite accurate, which is good. But they're really accurate, so that was really nice to see. And then at the end of the day, we'll do a foundation topic. And like I said, we were focusing on ancient Greece at the moment. So we've been doing our myths. They've created their own myths as well, and some of them, they've had lots of ideas. And the things about not... Sorry, 1 second. God. Oh, so we were talking about gods as well. So they had to create their own god. So one of the children came up with the idea of the god of cake. So we've had a great day talking about that, which is quite funny.
I have one of those in my house.
I was going to say, I would like to be blessed by the god of cake.
At the end of the day, we normally end with a story time where the children can just sit back and listen before they go home. And then for me, I start my planning for the next day once they've left.
And I'm wondering, I'm not wondering how you don't sleep at night, Simon, because you're obviously spending an awful amount of time. You need to spend an awful lot of time just creating all those lessons. But I would have thought by the end of such a day, you must be completely exhausted. So hats off to you for keeping going and for being in the second year. As you said, you've completed your first year. We meet you near the beginning of your second year in teaching, and I am curious actually, because we are talking about the early career framework, and I'm curious about what from the program or from the framework can you give us examples of things that have really helped you as a teacher so far? You can either, maybe from the program itself, from the materials that you've been looking at with your mentor, or perhaps you might want to talk about the mentoring relationship you have. What parts of the program have really helped you as an early career teacher?
Thank you. So I would like to share that I'm here because I have fed back to UCL, and UCL has actually listened to my feedback, which resulted in you inviting me here today to join the ECT staff room. So thank you very much, and now I can give my opinion and my voice out, or my sign out, sorry, of my feedback, really. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be here today. So at the start of the year, UCL resources didn't really fit in with what I had hoped for, you know, my teaching process here at Blanche Neville. The study sessions and the paperwork was good, but it was all focused on a mainstream setting. So I think we had a few other ECTs out there, including myself, that gave that feedback to UCL, and UCL have actually listened to us, and they have adapted and changed those resources to include SEND as well, which I'm really appreciative for.
Yeah.
And I think after the spring term, they then delivered a new resource with SEND included, which meant I finally was able to kind of get stuck in and develop and progress. So how UCL designed the programme and the teaching standards as well for each term. So I have one term where I focus on one area that I can really review and really work on, which I think is really useful. That's really helped me. And I can see my progress, I can see my development as I've gone through the year. But really, I mean, the paramount thing that I've really benefited from is having a mentor. I've learned so much from Emily. She's been so supportive, so encouraging, so congratulative when things have gone well. And I think I'm a teacher now because of her, really. So just again, thank you to Emily. And I also want to say I'm really appreciative of my team at the North East London Teaching Hub as well, and especially the HEP partnership as well. So I would like to say a big thank you to Hannah Bush and Emma Hanson for just they've really committed to my communication needs. They've really helped me to be included in the sessions and delivery so far. So I really appreciate both of them. And the last thing I'd like to say is a big thank you to some of my BSL English interpreters, particularly Faye Alvey and Katie Elliott, because when I first started my journey as a teacher and my job at Blanche Neville School, I had to apply for a government service called Access to Work, and it's government funding that then I'm allocated to be able to pay for my interpreters. But the application process is a very lengthy, long process. So Katie and Faye actually worked for free with me for quite a long time and didn't get paid. So I just want to say a big thank you to them for really supporting me through that. So yeah, that's my ECF experience so far.
It definitely takes a village to make a teacher, doesn't it? It's very kind of you, Simon. I think I'm sure all those people that you name checked are very grateful for that. But I'm sure they all did it because they believe, like you do, that we need to be involved in education, and in particular in your field in education for the deaf. Great. And I know Elaine's got an even trickier question lined up for you.
Yeah, Simon, you've already talked about the fact that when you first started the programme, you didn't feel it was particularly tailored to your context. And there are no mentions of teaching for the deaf explicitly in the ECF programme. And when it mentions special education, it tends to lump all additional learning needs together. But the programme does talk a lot about inclusivity and having high expectations for all pupils. And when you were talking about a day in your life, one of the things that struck me was there's a lot that teachers can learn from you. And there's a lot that teachers in mainstream settings can learn from teachers working in contexts such as your own. And I wanted to ask you, what should all ECTs know about deaf education?
That's a great question, Elaine. Thank you. So nationwide, the average statistic, what I've known so far anyway, is 1 in 10 people are deaf in some or have some form of deafness, which means teachers in a classroom, they have 30 children. So the statistics are out there. So it would really be great to just have that awareness to better support. So and make sure every child can achieve. So as well, looking at the teacher standards. So article number 5 has a high expectation for all children within their learning. So how you overcome, how you deliver any communication needs. So for more information regarding deaf education, you are right. In the ECF so far, it doesn't talk about teaching deaf children or teaching deaf education. There's nothing mentioned in there. So, and as you said, Elaine, it's all lumped together, which is nice that it's there, but I think they could improve so much and they could go a lot further. And just to include that high expectation for all children, but SEND has 4 different strands. So far, the research and the studies have only talked about one strand, but I'm not an expert in that area, so it's really difficult to kind of access and to answer that research study, which is quite difficult. So I've been doing my best to get on with it, but it'd be really great to see ECF have some different research studies for each strand within the SEND, which mean teachers can really, understand how that strand works and how they can teach those children so they can achieve that high expectation. So talking about CRIDE again, the consortium, I mentioned earlier from the National Deaf Children Society. So back in 2021, they had a report. So 78% of deaf children in mainstream schools at the moment, roughly about 88% use spoken language, and that's their first language, and that's fantastic to see because they get the best of both worlds. But peripatetic teachers of the deaf, roughly one peripatetic teacher is responsible for roughly 62 children on their caseload. That's each teacher, which is just so many children. It's staggering. And again, back to the NDCS research, the statistics show that deaf children are behind compared to their hearing peers. And their hearing peers, I think the NDCS as well said in 2019 that half of deaf children, about half, achieve a grade of level 4. That's in maths and English, compared to what was it, a third? Sorry. Compared to 3/4 of their hearing peers. So they're achieving a lot better than deaf children. They're only receiving half. So I'm not accepting that. I don't think that's acceptable. I think deafness is not a learning disability. It's a communication need, and I think it's learning how to get around that and how we can adapt to their needs. And I would love to see as well within the ECF that they improve their delivery to make sure they include more of us in each strand and more information for each strand, and make sure each strand is delivered by people who are experts, who have grown up in that field, who understand that field. And I would love to see as well, for example, if I would love to learn from a deaf educator. I would love to learn from a deaf person who has been through it, and who has, and I think that should apply to every strand within SEND, within SEND, sorry. So yeah, that's my feedback.
Thanks, Simon.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Elaine.
I was just going to say that it's so much to take from that. It sounds like there's a real need for development in schools here for us to learn more about how we can better support those communication needs. You certainly said things there that I wasn't aware of as a teacher, and I wish I had have been. It seems to me there's a need for more research and better communication of the existing research that we have. So you've given us real food for thought there. I'm sure Mark will have something he wants to add.
Yeah, I mean, every word was a dagger in my heart, Simon. I'm joking, of course, but being, as I was, one of the principal writers of the UCL program, I'm entirely conscious of its deficiencies, of what didn't get into the final edit of the program, what we don't have case studies for, research which we weren't able to draw upon to describe how teachers might teach. So absolutely, I'm more hyper conscious probably than most people of not just the pros of the our ECF program, but absolutely of its drawbacks as well. And I think the good news, or at least I hope the good news, is that we aren't going away. That we Elaine and I and our colleagues are continually looking for ways of developing the program. That this podcast series is part of that, because we want more and more people to join the conversation, to help us to draw upon that community of professionals and learners to enhance the program. But we do need to get serious about this, because deaf education is not a new thing. It's been around for a bit, I think, and so I think we should already be better at this as a provider of professional development. We should already be better at this than we are. But you have our promise that we are determined to continue to work. Simon, you've already done a lot to raise awareness.
That's great to hear. Sorry, Mark. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, do continue if there's more there.
No, just wanted to say that's great. So you go ahead. Please continue.
Well, I was going to say that you already do a lot to raise awareness for deaf education, Simon, and we have mentioned once at the very top of this interview that you're training for the London Marathon this coming weekend. So you raise awareness and you raise money for this. So tell us how's that been going? Actually, how sore are your feet? And what can we do? What if you've got a message for listeners out there or viewers out there to help you in your endeavours, what can they do?
Thank you, Mark, and Elaine. Thank you. So before I answer the question, I just have one quick thing to add, if that's all right with both of you. So again, I understand that the ECF, the first year it was released. So of course it would have some teething, problems. But I am very appreciative that you both listened to my feedback and you are getting stuck in and you're committed to developing and improving that framework. So again, thank you for inviting me based on my feedback from UCL. And I want to share a message with other ECTs. Just please provide your feedback. It's so important because UCL do actually listen to feedback. And they are willing, they want to improve and they want to make sure their program meets everybody's needs. So that's just my message to ECTs. Make sure you give your feedback. And then going back to my marathon, I'll let you know how I'm getting on so far. Oh, I can't believe it's this Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's been very tough, the start of this year. So I've been trying to juggle, again, my training and balancing with my paperwork, my planning, as a full-time teacher. It's been very difficult. I don't know how I'm still standing, to be honest. But I am running because it's for a great cause. Well, I hope so anyway. So Blanche Neville School have a charity partnership called Friends of Blanche Neville. So I'm raising money for them. So the more money we can raise, we'll have the more money to support our deaf children. And I'm hoping to tick the box of standard Article 8 and part 2 as well, which is handy. So brownie points for me, I think.
Simon, I think you've gone above and beyond for part 2. I think more than I think you should get a ginormous tick in that part 2 box, because I don't know many ECTs that have run a marathon. So well done. And I wanted to ask, how can we sponsor you? Where would we go to sponsor you for the marathon?
Oh, that would be fabulous. Thank you. I'm happy to share the link to my fundraising page. I'll send that over to you. And hopefully you could share that with the people who are watching. I'd really appreciate that so much. Anything anyone can donate. But yeah, just to let you know, I have been training very hard. But not too hard, to be honest. It has been hard, but my first year of teaching was definitely harder than my training. It was a lot harder, just to let you know.
Teaching is harder than running a marathon. Is that the takeaway from this podcast? Wow.
Sunday should be a complete walk in the park for me, anyway. Hopefully.
Simon and Emma, thank you so much for joining us in the staff room this afternoon. Elaine and I often get to say how in awe we are of the people who come and join us in this virtual staff room. Every teacher we know, every teacher we've met, we were teachers ourselves. We're a great fan of the breed, but being creative, being energetic, being enthusiastic, being champions for young people, that's the business that we're in, I think. So it's lovely to hear you talk about it with such passion, such commitment. And also you've not forgotten the teacher standards, which is amazing. Standard 5, standard 8, well referenced in today's chat. I'm very impressed. We're going to let you go because I'm sure you need to strap on your trainers again to go out for another jog. Sorry that your coffee never turned up, but nonetheless, we look forward to watching you on our TV screens as you pound your way over Tower Bridge or wherever it is we're going to see you, and good luck, Simon, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Mark and Elaine. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to Emma. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Our thanks go to our colleague Simon Herdman for sharing coffee with us this week in the ECF staff room. Simon is a second-year ECT at the Blanche Neville School for Deaf Children and Young People in North London. We recorded this episode with Simon on 26th of September, days before he was due to take part in the London Marathon on behalf of the Friends of Blanche Neville.
Please do get in touch with us if you would like to talk about your ECF experience. We especially want to hear from a range of voices. And lastly, we hope you will join us next time for a biscuit and a chat with another colleague in the ECF staff room.
Thanks so much for downloading and listening to this IOE podcast.